Hello, and welcome to another edition of AircraftPost Rousseau Report. I'm Dennis Rousseau. Before we begin, I'd like to answer a query regarding strategic planning. First off, what is it? It's understanding a direction for aircraft ownership by assessing both where you are in terms of the aircraft life cycle and where you're going. When are you going to dispose of it? It's about implementing effective decision-making regarding aircraft ownership, acquisition, and resale. Putting everyone on the same page. Integrating the flight department with accounting, finance, and HR. How do you put a plan in place? Using the right industry measures. And that is what AircraftPost is all about. And that's exactly what we provide. Think about it. You lobby hard to get the right aircraft, you spec it out, you have to wait 9 months for completion, you place it in service, and 5 years hence, your $40 million asset is worth $15 million. What happened? We'll be addressing this more in future sessions. Now, in the past, we've talked about the G650, Falcon 8X, and Global 6000 in the long-range category, and today we're going to cover the Gulfstream G550, one of the most popular and sought-after business jets in the Gulfstream lineup, with 631 aircraft built to date, and that's as of February 2021. To better understand the G550, we first need to touch upon its predecessor, the G5. The G5 was the second long-range business jet to enter service, and the predecessor to the G550. As a side note, the reason it's the second, the Global Express entered service in February of '97. The first G5, July of '97. Kudos to Bombardier. You'll hear me speak on an iterant or derivative of an aircraft model. And to clarify, the G4X, GIV-X, G5, and G5SP were not issued a new type certificate data sheet when they were certified. They were added to the existing G2 through G4 type certificate. However, they're not considered variants of the G4 for type rating purposes. As you can see, the forward wing root lines up exactly with the third cabin window of each aircraft. The G5 uses the G4's fuselage cross-section with a 7-foot plug, which allows space for dedicated crew rest and larger galley to service 12-hour missions. The G5 also featured a new wing, an empennage, and Rolls-Royce BR710 engines, which we'll get to in a moment. The G5 was advertised as having a 6,000 nautical mile range, and that would make New York to Tokyo nonstop. Unfortunately, it couldn't make the trip westbound, with high temperatures aloft or above average headwinds. For many flight departments, they would make a technical stop, or otherwise known as a tech stop for fuel in Anchorage, change crews, and continue on. As a result of this shortcoming, Gulfstream applied various drag-reducing changes. They reconfigured the outflow valve, they changed the antenna shape, many antenna shapes, and the wing trailing edge contour, and Rolls-Royce tweaked the BR710 engines. The G550 was born. With a range of 6,500 nautical miles with reserves at 0.8 Mach cruise, gave it an ample range for nonstop flight from New York to Tokyo, among many other city pairs. Although some refinements are difficult to see, the most visible changes are in the exterior and cockpit. The most notable exterior refinement, the G550 has 7 cabin windows on both the left and right side. But let's take a closer look. Here's a G5, registered to none other than the U.S. government. And when we look at the left-hand side of the fuselage, we can see there's no physical way you can possibly install a 7th cabin window between the entrance door and the forward window. Now let's view it from a different angle. 6 cabin windows on the G5 in the top photo, and 7 on the aircraft in the bottom photo, so it must be a G550. No, they're both G5s. Keep in mind the 550 uses the G5's type certificate. The 7th cabin window on the right-hand side was STC'd and offered as a $250,000 option, for which 9 G5s had the window installed. So how did they fit the window on the left-hand side? They didn't stretch the fuselage. Rather, they moved the entrance door 2 feet forward, which allowed the installation of a standard 7th cabin window on the left-hand side. So when you're out and about and you see a G5 550 and count 7 windows on each side, it's a G550. The other notable change is in the cockpit, where Gulfstream replaced the 6 CRTs with 4 14-inch LCDs which offer a number of distinct advantages. Obviously, the larger displays are much easier on the eyes, but also the LCDs have a longer life and operate much cooler than CRTs. And as such, Gulfstream was able to eliminate the cooling fan used to dissipate heat from the CRTs, which in turn decreases cockpit noise. The G5 had a page-long list of avionics options. Gleaning from which options owners selected, Gulfstream made the most popular of those standard on the G550. By way of example, head-up display, enhanced vision system, third FMS, multi-channel SATCOM, auto throttle, all standard. The G550 avionics system is derived from the Honeywell Primus Epic platform, but is built specifically for the 550 as well as the 450 and G650 and rebranded Plainview. Other aircraft that are built on the Epic platform are the Falcon 2000, 900, 7X, 8X, and because they're built out specifically for the Falcons, Dassault calls it the Easy Cockpit, which stands for Enhanced Avionics System. The Rolls-Royce BR710 engines provide the G550 power. They're the same engines found on the G5 and Bombardier's Global series. However, all Globals are operated on condition. The 550s can be operated either hard time or on condition. The former will have a 4,000-hour midlife that costs roughly $4 million, and the second is the 8,000-hour overhaul with a cost, plus or minus, of $8 million. To mitigate the lump sum, like other engine OEMs, Rolls-Royce offers an hourly accrual program called Corporate Care. That runs on average $600 per engine per hour, with a minimum utilization charge of 400 hours per year, whether you fly it or not, and that's what has owners up in arms when their annual utilization may only be 200 hours. In that event, some operators simply pay as you go. Should the on-condition schedule be elected, the engines will still undergo the equivalent of an overhaul, right around 8,000 hours. So one half dozen of the other, someone is going to absorb the cost of an overhaul at some point. It's a catch-22. If you don't have an engine program, you'll pay dearly come time of resale. Now let's take a look at the inside. First off, all large category Gulfstreams have a 3-zone cabin, and buyers have an option of either a forward or aft galley. 58% of the G5 fleet has an aft galley. 550 orders began in 2001, and 63% of buyers opted for the forward galley. By using this layout, the crew has their own lavatory and rest area, and the passengers have the cabin and aft lav to themselves. Regardless of galley position, the G550 comes standard with forward and aft vacuum lavatories. This reduces odor, as well as the amount of water that needs to be carried. Although 7 feet was added to the G4 fuselage, the cabin seating area is the same length at 26 feet 5 inches. And this is for all the large cabin Gulfstreams. Now keep in mind, this was done primarily to accommodate a forward crew rest, an extended galley. The typical seating configuration consists of 4 singles in a club arrangement forward, 4-place conference grouping mid-cabin, and 2 divans aft. Although in some cases, one of the divans is replaced with 2 single seats. 71% of the G550 fleet has a dedicated forward crew rest area. And for an aircraft that will fly 6,500 nautical miles nonstop, if you don't have one, you're going to pay for it come time of resale. If you notice, with aft galley configurations, the crew rest has 1 window, whereas the forward galley, there are 2 windows, which makes for a much roomier crew rest area, although it pushes the 26-foot seating area further aft, meaning there's only 1 cabin window in the aft cabin, which I'll show you in a moment. The forward lavatory may seem compact, and that's because it is. When you open the lav door, you may wonder, where's the sink? It actually folds down from the sidewall. And yes, it does have cold and hot water. By opting for the forward galley configuration, you'll typically cover the 2 forward windows. As you can see with the galley annex on the left-hand side, Gulfstream built the sidewall to reveal half of the window, which provides much-needed light for preparing meals. And I should add, this galley is well designed to accommodate 10 passengers on a 12-hour mission. The standard arrangement for the forward cabin is Executive Club 4, but there are always some buyers that prefer something different. In the upper right photo, 2 singles are replaced with a 3-place divan. And the one problem that you run into is when passengers or a flight attendant need to move through the cabin, passengers occupying the divan need to stand up to let them pass. Keeping in mind, the cabin width at floor line is only 5 feet 4 inches. And as you move up to the windows and the side ledge, you have 7 feet, not the widest body in class. The photo in the lower right corner shows even more customization with an executive workstation opposite 2 singles. There's nothing wrong with customization. However, come time of resale, you'll be narrowing your marketability. And most likely, you're going to take a hit on price. Considering to remove either of these placements and install 2 singles, you're looking at $500,000 to $1 million plus downtime. Entering the mid-cabin, the standard arrangement is either a 4-place conference group or 2 singles opposite a 3-place divan. And if you notice, 2 of the 4 emergency exit windows are in the mid-cabin, which means the aircraft has a forward galley. In these photos, it's depicted a little better, where in the left-hand photo, you see about 5 feet of empty sidewall before you get to the aft lavatory door. You may think, who wants to sit in a windowless tube? Well, this arrangement is typically used as a stateroom, and both divans are berthable, making for a quiet sleep area. On aircraft with an aft galley, the entire cabin has windows. The aft lav is very spacious. It can also be used as a changing area. The door in the center leads to the 226 cubic foot baggage area that's not accessible in flight unless you're under 41,000 feet, and then only for a short time. Now, because the aircraft comes standard equipped with so much, there's little left for options. Most avionics come dual or triple configuration, and that leaves the cabin. That comes standard with a 19 and 24-inch LCD monitor, AirShow 4000, 7-channel SATCOM, and just when we think we covered it all, along comes a shower. And as you've heard me say before, you add equipment or additional furnishings, you add weight. And as a result, there are only 2 aircraft we know of, and possibly 4, with a shower installed. Then, of course, we have 550s converted for the military for reconnaissance, and thankfully, they'll never come to the market. Now let's look at the MSG-3 maintenance schedule for the 550 that's accomplished on an hourly and calendar basis every 500 hours or 12 months, which are mostly routine, taking 3 to 4 days and cost plus or minus $16,000 until we get to the 8C or 96 month. Now we're upwards of $250,000 and about 3 weeks of downtime. The second 96 month or 192 month runs on average $550,000 and 4 weeks of downtime. The other major inspection is the gear overhaul that's accomplished every 5,000 cycles or 5,000 landings and costs on average $700,000. So as you can see, owning a 550 is not inexpensive, and this is where a lot of new owners get themselves into trouble, by misunderstanding costs of ownership, which leads us into markets. There are currently 29 available aircraft on the pre-owned market. Ask prices ranging from $8.4 million for a 16-year-old 15,000-hour former fractional aircraft to $22.2 million for a 2015 year model with 2,800 hours total time. In the last 6 months, we show 30 transactions with selling prices ranging from $8.8 for a 16-year-old with 7,000 hours total time, but it is due a 192-month, up to $26.7 million in selling price for a 2015 year model with 1,900 hours total time. Lastly, let's look at residual values. Taking a 2010 year model that had an average selling price new of $48 million, and today, all things being equal, that aircraft is selling for $17.8 million, meaning it lost 63% of its original cost new in just 10 years. If it continues on this pace of 6.3% per year, where will it be in another 10 years? So let's get on board our 550 and go to the mountains for a day of skiing. For AircraftPost Rousseau Report, I'm Dennis Rousseau. Until next time.